Price targets are a fool's errand, we think, but we think above where it is, and I think certainly above the recent highs. So we think we'll see a new all-time high this year.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined by Chanchal Samadar. He's head of product and capital markets at Bitwise Europe. Chanchal, very good to meet you. We're taking a closer look at the crypto market today. Take us through the macro picture at the moment and what it means for crypto assets.
Sure. Great to meet you, Stephen, and thanks for having me on. Yeah, we've seen quite an interesting picture over the last month or so. I think the catalyst really was in traditional markets when the BOJ quite unexpectedly raised rates, which led to the knock-on effect of the traditional yen carry trade being unwound, and that's really impacted all risk assets. So we saw equities draw down quite significantly, and crypto and Bitcoin still being considered a risk asset. We saw that sort of impact negatively the price of Bitcoin. And it's been quite a long overhang, actually. We've been range bound since March. There's been a really two-way tug between sort of, bulls and bears and traders in the market. Generally in terms of flows in ETFs, that's been quite positive. We've had some overhang of seized assets by the German government, and then the Mt. Gox distributions being sold as well. So it's kind of been a tug of war, really, over the last month. But I think it feels like we're seeing coming towards a tactical bottom from our perspective. Though, having said that, typically, historically, September's the worst month for Bitcoin and crypto. So maybe we have a little bit more pain to go. But I think sort of looking forward, maybe we think the picture looks quite positive. As we've said, so those distributions from the German government, that selling pressure is sort of slowly going away. I think 2/3 of the Mt. Gox distributions are now done. And obviously, with the negative sentiment of a higher probability of a US recession, the second order impact of that is probable rate cuts, and crypto and Bitcoin remain very liquidity sensitive assets. So I think if we see the Fed are projecting rate cuts in September and October, I think that will be a strong catalyst for Bitcoin prices.
I mean, looking away from the macro picture, how about sentiment itself towards cryptos like Ethereum and Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, I think the adage still goes, when Bitcoin sneezes, the rest of it catches a cold. So Bitcoin still does lead, and the impact is that there's been quite sort of negative sentiment towards other from crypto native investors as well. It's been a quiet summer. There's not been much development sort of on chain. On chain activity has been quite slow, not much volumes. And then there's been some unique things to Ethereum, which is obviously the second biggest crypto in terms of what we think is a long-term positive. But the recent upgrade, which is called EIP 4844, basically making it cheaper to use Ethereum for Ethereum layer 2s. But the impact of that is the revenues for Ethereum on chain have gone down. So that's sort of caused some more negative sentiment towards Ethereum particularly. But again, we think long-term this is brilliant. It makes Ethereum more scalable and usable, and makes, it means it can onboard 1 billion users through layer 2s eventually.
Chanchal, you mentioned the two-way tug between bulls and bears and also the positive flows. Yeah, we've seen Bitcoin stuck in a sideways range. Do you see it breaking out of that range?
Yeah, we think so. We think we're coming towards a tactical bottom. I think maybe September, and again, macro will have an influence on this. And we've seen sort of pretty negative sentiment in equities and tech stocks, and crypto is still quite correlated to that. However, we do sense a decoupling. Some of the work we've done, our head of research, Andre, has done, shows that, in terms of the correlation to global growth expectations, that's sort of coming down, and the correlation towards other factors, including sort of unique factors in crypto and liquidity, seems to be increasing. So we think, hopefully getting through September, we see some cuts, increased liquidity, and then we think sentiment will come back, and we hope to see a breakout on the upside.
And your expectations for Bitcoin by the end of the year?
Price targets are a fool's errand, we think, but we think above where it is, and I think certainly above the recent highs. So we think we'll see a new all-time high this year.
Okay, well, we won't hold you to that. And Chanchal, thank you very much for your insights today. Good meeting you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Stephen, for having me.
That's Chanchal Samadar. He's Bitwise Head of Product and Capital Markets for Europe.